Now, if there was one character that every comic book fan was dying to see in this extended universe, it'd be this one. And let me just say, he does not disappoint whatsoever. Thank you, Tom Holland. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to yet another brand new movie review, and as per, I thank you all so much for stopping by, and I hope you enjoy your stay. But this time around, we're looking at Spider-Man Homecoming. This was the third attempt to create a solo Spider-Man franchise in the span of 15 years. Kind of absurd. But we're finally seeing a solo incarnation of the webhead in the vaster Marvel Cinematic Universe. So long story short, people were absolutely hyped to see this when it was released theatrically in 2017. It was directed by Jon Watts, and it stars Tom Holland as the one and only Peter Parker. Thrilled by his experience with the Avengers in Captain America Civil War, young Peter Parker returns home to live with his Aunt May, played by Marisa Tomei. And under the watchful eye of mentor Tony Stark, played once again by Robert Downey Jr., Parker starts to embrace his newfound identity as Spider-Man. He also tries to return to his normal daily routine, distracted by thoughts of proving himself to be more than just a friendly neighborhood superhero. But Peter must soon put his powers to the test when the evil Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, emerges to threaten everything that he holds dear. And as per with every single review I've done on this playlist so far, this review will be filled with some spoilers, so just in case you haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming, I've warned you. Let me just start by saying this, guys. Spider-Man is special, not just to me, but to a lot of comic book nerds out there. I feel like this is the most popular and beloved character in all of Marvel's lore. I haven't yet talked to one person who actually dislikes Spider-Man, because he's the everyday kid with everyday problems who's just trying to bring good into the world. And just like a lot of us when we were in high school, he's desperately trying to find his place and his calling in the world. And I think Homecoming portrays all of that really well. When I first saw this in theaters, I thought this movie was a ton of fun. And I still think that to this day. I was stoked when I left this theater on opening night because at the time, I had just seen what I thought was the best interpretation of Spider-Man in a movie since 2004. That's a big fucking deal, guys. And Tom Holland really is a big reason why that is. And Tom Holland really is a big reason as to why I enjoyed this movie so much. An effective actor for Spider-Man on film has to fit not just one, but two different characters. You have Spider-Man himself, then you have Peter Parker, the boy behind the mask. And just like in Civil War, but in a starring vehicle this time, he kills it. He brings a lot of naivety to the role, and it's super endearing to watch him. And we immediately get behind him through a really clever short film that Peter actually made during the events of Civil War. You guys know what I'm talking about, where he's basically recounting that whole airport sequence, which I can't praise enough. He's vlogging it, and I thought that was all really clever. But then when he becomes Spider-Man, yes, fans of the Mark Webb films will know, the quips are certainly there in Homecoming. The comedy in this movie is very good. I wouldn't say it's on Guardians level per se, but I can't deny that the movie certainly has a lot of clever little in-jokes thrown in. Hey, wait a second, you guys aren't the real Avengers. Now, a lot of this movie's humor doesn't just come from Tom Holland himself, but also Jacob Batalon as Ned, the man in the chair. Nailed it. Absolutely love Ned. If I found out suddenly that my best friend was Spider-Man, I would probably have a lot of questions for him too. And that's a really funny little montage as well. It's one of my personal favorite sequences in the whole film. We also have Zendaya as this outcast girl who we'll just call Michelle for right now. But let's face it, those of you who've seen both MCU Spider-Man-led films up to this point know who Michelle is. And I really dug the way Zendaya approached this role in Homecoming. She really feels to me like the Ali Sheedy character from The Breakfast Club. Except she doesn't really have that big moment at the end where she really explains her motivation for going to detention and drawing all the sad people. She just enjoys it. You know, that's it. And I'm supposed to just sit here and kind of accept that. Who am I to judge? But that's another praise I can give this movie, because these filmmakers were clearly inspired by the John Hughes coming-of-age classics of the 80s. I'm talking movies like The Breakfast Club, which I love, and I'm talking movies like Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which I love even more. And I think that was really cool to see this type of coming-of-age genre in the superhero realm. But there's also... You know, I'll save that when I talk about all my issues with this. But while I'm at it, I can still really respect this movie for its approach to this coming-of-age genre. It makes this version of Spider-Man feel like its own creation. One of the many problems I had with Mark Webb's Amazing Spider-Man film, the first one that is, it just felt like a very, very large retread. It felt like the exact same movie that Sam Raimi gifted us back in 2002, except not as fun or as entertaining to watch. In Homecoming, we don't have to sit through Uncle Ben's murder. We don't have to sit through Peter being bitten by the spider again. Not like it's not alluded to in Ned's whole montage of questions that I was talking about. But my point is, I still really respect these filmmakers for diverting away from that and giving us a completely different origin story. Because what they basically did is they took the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man mantra, and they used it and they presented it to us in the literal sense. And I thought that was really, really neat to see them do that. It also has a really funny way of addressing questions like, what if Spidey couldn't swing around because there's no skyscrapers? They're just open fields. And the answer is, he'd just run. He'd just run, which would suck. I agree, Peter. It does suck. And it also sucks that he's got various bad guys to deal with, such as the Vulture, played by the one and only Michael Keaton, who is on a huge career resurgence at this point. I don't know what his deal is with playing Birdman, but he was absolutely superb as the Vulture. Not only because of the performance, but I love how this character is written. He's got personal reasons for being there. He's got a personal vendetta against Tony Stark, who I don't even need to mention how entertaining RDJ was in this movie. You already knew that. And I will admit, it was super cool to see the Vulture after Sam Raimi was planning on introducing him in his Spider-Man 4, which never happened. Yeah. One thing that I really respected about this villain is that there were a lot of facets about him that were unpredictable. You could never quite guess truly where he was gonna pop up next. And that's never more apparent when Peter goes to pick up his date Liz for the homecoming dance. And Keaton himself answers the door, revealing himself as Liz's father. Oh boy, this reveal, guys. That was legitimately unexpected. My theater, when I saw this opening night, was absolutely shocked. I'll never forget it. There was a collective gasp of, oh no! And I'll never forget this visual. The guy sitting behind me, I was just looking around, seeing all these people reacting. There was a huge ruckus. But the guy sitting behind me, I got a peek of him. This is all I saw. That really says it all, doesn't it? But before anybody asks, I do prefer Far From Home over this movie. Okay, hold on, everybody. Now, please let me explain why I prefer Far From Home, because Homecoming is certainly a fun movie, but it doesn't come without its flaws. As I've already mentioned, Vulture sneaks up on Peter at a couple of different points in this movie. Issue number 1. Homecoming never addresses Peter's Spidey Sense. They might have done it a little bit more subtly. I noticed there's a lot of people that may defend this down in the comments, and they're like, oh, you didn't even see this. Well, if that's the case, and they did not explore the Spidey Sense as much as Sam Raimi explored it in his films. And if it was definitely more subtle, bravo. I just wish it would have been explored with a little bit more consistency. I also wish there was a little bit more consistency in connecting this character to what made him so endearing in the comics, and also what made him so cool in the comics. Because with the Spidey Sense, he can just tell whenever somebody's in a room or when an enemy's gonna attack him from behind, like a Vulture. That way, Peter doesn't have to rely on Karen, the voice inside the suit, to tell him what to do next, or better yet, where enemies are coming from. He's not Iron Man, he's Spider-Man. I get that he's Tony Stark's protege and everything, but let him be his own thing. Which brings me to another little nitpick I had, even though I thought this scene was really funny. It's when Peter Parker is on the ceiling trying to sneak in so that Aunt May doesn't see him in the super suit. And he jumps down off the ceiling and there's Ned with the Death Star in Lego form. If he really had Spidey Sense, wouldn't Peter have known that Ned was in the room the instant he went in? Issue number 2. I keep bringing Sam Raimi's versions up and how much influence they had on me and my comic book movie geekdom growing up. His action scenes were gritty and brutal and bloody, and Spider-Man is getting the absolute beaten out of him. Crimson viscous fluid everywhere. Homecoming, by comparison, is definitely a lot more lighthearted than the Raimi films, which is fine. But there are action sequences in here like the ferry boat sequence or the bank robbery stoppage. Those are pretty fun in their own right. But I was personally hoping for a little bit more grittiness to them, because with that grittiness comes stakes. Which brings me to issue number 3. As a standalone Spider-Man movie, it doesn't really feel like the stakes are there compared to some of the other ones. That is, until Tony Stark confiscates Peter's super suit away from him after the ferry boat sequence. That was really effective, because then it feels like Peter really has to earn back the suit. It's really clever also how the whole climax is handled, going back to Stark's quote, "If you're nothing without that suit, then you shouldn't have it." And then Tom Holland does that whole climax with the most shitty, bare-knuckled Spider-Man suit possible. But before then, it's just a fun, enjoyable little high school movie. And it's fun to watch, surely. It did remind me a lot of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but it comes with consequences. The stakes in Homecoming aren't there like they are in Captain America the Winter Soldier, for example. Which brings me to my fourth and final issue. Because I don't feel like the stakes are there for most of this movie, the pacing I think can suffer a little bit. Most of the movie, as I've already mentioned, is Peter in high school, which is really nice. It allows us to be there with him as he deals with his everyday problems. We've all been there. As I alluded to towards the top of this review, the relatability is what makes this character so popular. But again, none of these events feel as detrimental or as impactful to the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe in the grand scheme of things, which makes the movie itself not feel as important in the grand scheme of things. Far From Home, on the other hand, I'll save it. We'll get to that once that video comes around. But as it is, Spider-Man Homecoming isn't a bad movie at all. I do really like it. It's very fun, and it does give me a lot of nostalgic vibes from some of my favorite films from the 80s. You get a fantastic turn from Tom Holland, a fun villain who definitely has a reason to be there. Fantastic score from Michael Giacchino as well. Point being, my flaws are my flaws. I still really like this. I'm gonna give Spider-Man Homecoming a B+. As per tradition with Marvel Studios, stay tuned after the movie's over for mid and post-credit sequences. This time around, the mid-credits gives you a pretty ominous teaser for what looks like it could be the establishment of the Sinister Six in this universe, which would be awesome. And there's also one at the very end involving PE teacher Steve Rogers teaching us about the virtues of patience. If only he knew. But these are all just my opinions about Homecoming. What do you guys think of it? Do you enjoy it? Do you not? What is your guys' favorite Spider-Man feature film up to this point? I would love to discuss all of these topics and much, much more all down there in the comments. Let's have a further discussion, guys. Because I love making these videos with you guys and discussing movies and all facets of entertainment over here. If all these topics sound appealing to you, I would definitely consider hitting that subscribe button down below as hard as you possibly can. It is free, first of all. It would really, really help out the channel if you did so. And you guys will also be the first ones to find out anytime I upload a new video over here. And while I'm at it, be sure to leave me a thumbs up on your way out, especially if you liked the review. That would be awesome, awesome, awesome. And as per, look out for more exciting content hitting this channel very, very soon, including the continuation of this Marvel Studios playlist. I'm very excited to bring you this next review. We're looking at one of my personal favorites, Thor Ragnarok. The debut in this universe of one Taika Waititi in the director's chair. Thank goodness. But you all have got that to look forward to and much, much more. You guys are awesome. With all that being said, back talk, commence!